Our team is formed by students who have different academic backgrounds. Some of us are studying in business school, some of us are studying in engineering school. But we have one common goal, which is applying the monitoring techniques to serve the community. Our topic is looking into the suspected settlement in Changquan Old Industrial Estate. The following are the project objectives. Finding out suspected settlement area. Second, surveying on suspected settlement area. Third, tackling the worries of nearby residents. Fourth, applying the knowledge that we have gained in CIVL 1660. Now, let's talk about why we picked Changquan Old Industrial Estate as suspected settlement area. From the graph, we can see that there are three sets of areas which are in orange color. These areas are reclaimed land and industrial estates located on the right hand side. According to the course material, all reclaimed land will have soil movement. The speed of settlement depends on fill materials and seabed material. The settlement will continue for 5 to 7 years. This is the reason why we would like to look into this settlement area. By reading Legislative Council document, the government expected 300 mm settlement after 1 year of recommendations. In 1999 October, the government recorded 340 mm settlement. Although the settlement was closed down after 1999 August, the settlement affected factory operations seriously, such as machines could not enter the factories due to a huge gap between the front door. From the pictures, we can see that remedy was made by filling up the gap with concrete. The furious settlement made many residents who live nearby worried their property would be damaged. After nearly 2 decades, settlement problems are still troubling Changquan Old residents. News reporters found that a newly constructed bridge in Changquan Old has multiple signs of differential settlement. Pedestrians can see cracks on the road surface and serious dislocated connection. This caused a public outcry for further investigations. This news leads us to our questions. Is the reclaimed land still sinking in 2017?
So after knowing that the project is to focus on the problem of settlement, so what settlement actually is? So settlement is actually referred to the distortion and disruption of parts of the buildings. The well-known Leaning Tower of Pisa is one of the cases showing the settlement. It usually happens to the foundation sinking and soil movement. There are three kinds of settlement: uniform settlement, tipping settlement, and differential settlement, all caused by different reasons and give different consequences. There are actually two main reasons for the occurrence of the settlement. First of all, if the weight of the buildings or structures exceed the capacity of the soil, the compressional force will be too big for the soil to hold and causing the sinkage of the building. The problem is mainly due to dead and lift loads. Take libraries as an example. The unexpected huge amount of additional books in the library will bring huge pressure on the soil and leads to settlement. The second reason will be the soil movement. There are many reasons behind the occurrence of the movement, like moisture, vibrations, and pressures, are all the factors that affect the soil. Other than these natural factors, faulty design or construction made by mankind may also lead to soil sinkage. Besides, reclaimed land is also vulnerable to settlement. So as for the consequences, if the case is not that serious, which means that the extent of the settlement is below the permissible limit, the building itself above the ground, known as the superstructure, will not be affected too much. The damage mainly goes to the surface line. For example, bursting of sanitary pipe, defection of telephone and electric cable. But if it goes beyond the limit, there may be damage to the superstructure. For example, cracks on the walls and roads, or even leads to the structural failure and collapse. After knowing what settlement really is, you may think that the problem is far away from your daily life. But to be honest, it's not. The topic we chose is already the example of it. Parts of the Chuanquan is actually reclaimed it. That's why it's vulnerable to settlement, and that's also the reason why we chose settlement as the topic. The buildings on top are actually stable and safe, but the friction pipe sinks below the soil due to the soil movement, leading to burst pipe and cracks on walls and roads. Another example would be salt piling case in Yunchao Kok. It is due to the fault made by the constructor. The main reason is the temporary casing did not meet the required level due to corruption and some cost cutting. It leads to sodden pipe and eventually cost us 650 million monetary loss and imprisonment of various agents and constructor. It is one of the various few cases happened in Hong Kong caused by the human error. And now I will pass my time to Sing and talk about the research we have done.
As to the methodology of our research on Cheung Kwan O settlement case, we have used several equipment, including the rotatable telescope with the model of ATG2 with a tripod. Also, we have used the two leveling staffs to measure the heights of different spots in Cheung Kwan O. How we gonna determine whether the site is having a settlement or not? It's very simple. We are gonna pick several stations in the site and measure the differences between the heights of the back sites and the forward sites. And we are going to read the heights of the leveling staffs from the lens of the telescope. And in this project, we chose the location to be the benchmark 20701 near the TVB city because of the low traffic flow around the site. After all the preparation, we have visited the site on the 30th of March at 6 a.m. with all the equipment, and we have set 7 stations from station A to station G around the benchmark 20701. First of all, we start with the benchmark as the first back sites and set up the tripod with the telescope ATG2 by using spirit level and make sure the bubble is in the center, and which means that we are using the telescope as the balance level. Then we look through the lens of the telescope and get the reading from the leveling staffs and mark it on the sheet. And we decided to revisit the site around a month afterwards, on the 9th of May at 2 p.m. And since we had marked the station A to station G with a marker when we are doing our first measurement, luckily 1 month later only a few marks are fade away, and we finally figure out the location of the stations with the photos we have taken, and repeat the measurement procedure once more, which is looking through the lens of the telescope and reading the heights of the leveling staffs. And we mark it on the sheet again, and we compare 2 sheets together.
After undergoing 2 differential measurements in Cheung Kwan O industrial essay, the result is quite promising. We found that there is no settlement. We set 7 stations from A to G as mentioned, and observe the backside and front side between different stations. Then we calculate the difference in 2 stations and record whether it's rise or fall. Finally, we combine all the rises and falls difference to obtain our value. Our value is to ensure the quality of our measurement and if there is any big human error. These are day 1 and day 2 data sheets that we record. After comparing data of 2 days, the rises and falls are nearly the same except the fall value at station F. It was measured 0.17 fall on day 1 and 0.23 meter on day 2. The biggest reason is unsophisticated measuring techniques, as it is hard to balance the stuff on uneven breakfall. Also, as we carried out the day 1 observation in the evening, the insufficient light source may lead to unclear observing. Concerning the RL value as mentioned, the maximum error will be 8 times square root of number of stations micrometer. So in our cases, the maximum error will be 8 times square root of 7, which is about 21 millimeters. All of our measurements fall within it. Although Zhongguan is come from reclamation, and reclamation always come with settlement, there is no evidence suggests for settlement in the measuring area. As the reclamation of Zhongguan finished in 1995, there are so many years allowed for settlement. Though there were a lot of news stating the settlement in Zhongguan areas, it was a long time ago. Therefore, we can observe settlement in 2017.
I'm going to talk about the limitations and difficulties our group faced during the whole project. Our limitations and difficulties mainly consist of 2 issues: pedestrians and weather. And I will talk about them one by one in detail now. As mentioned before, one of our visits is in the afternoon, which leads to our first difficulties, the issue regarding pedestrians. Although the location of our measurement is right near a construction site and TVB city, there is still some pedestrians will pass through and walk by during our measuring process. Some of them even carry a trolley when they walk across, and we have no choice but to make way for these pedestrians, as the road is for public, we cannot occupy it. Apart from that, our measuring points are distributed along 2 pavements separated by a road, which means we have to put the telescope on the road for taking the center point for the 2 points from 2 pavements. When there are cars travel along the road, we have to avoid the car first before we can continue our measure. We did mark the spot for our leveling rod and the telescope, and we did put it back right on the spot after making way for the pedestrians and the cars. But still, a little bit error may occur. Weather is also a big problem for our project. Since the location is at outdoor, we cannot do the measurements when the weather is rainy in order to protect the equipment and also for safety concerns. During our first site visit, originally we planned to start at 2 p.m., same as the second site visit. Unfortunately, it was a rainy day. We had to wait until 6 p.m. for the rain to stop, then we can continue our project. We also postponed our second site visit since the heavy rain, and the problems come along with the heavy rain. The rain washed away some of our markings we left from the previous site visit for the location of the leveling rod. Most of them survived through the heavy rain and still can be seen by careful checking, but one of the marks was totally washed away. At last, we used the photo we took on the first visit to help us estimate the location of the leveling rod. Despite these 2 difficulties we encountered, we tried our best to find ways to compensate and to reduce the error of our measurement. Turns out that the result is acceptable and within the range of error rate.
To conclude, there was no settlement found after our investigations. According to the Legislative Council document, the abnormal ground settlement was was due to unexpected groundwater-related subsidence. This made the soil loosen its bearing capacity, and the Changguan O ended up with serious ground settlement. This problem was fixed by blocking underground waters entering the sewage system in 1999, and the government has ensured no more ground settlement in Changguan O in 2,000 years. In the press release, this coherent with our test results, which no more ground settlement, and Changguan O is safe to live. And thank you for your attention. Thank you.